Hi friends, this video is about a continuation of the previous video I did about Tony, who was the author of the book Delivering Happiness, and he was founder of Link Exchange, and he also was the CEO of Zappos, the famous online shoe company, which I think got acquired by Amazon eventually. So going through the life of Tony was a big learning for me because it was extremely insightful. So in the previous first part, we discussed, he exited this company called Link Exchange, which is an ad network, and then he started a venture fund, which is called Venture Frogs, and they started investing in early stage startups, mostly in the idea phase. And one of the companies in Venture Frogs they invested was actually Zappos, and Zappos was still in the idea phase, early stage. And Tony in the book explains about the moment they met, the incident where they actually decided to meet the founder of Zappos, whose name is called Nick. I think he's the one who came up with the concept or idea to create an online shoe company. I think this is back in the 20s, I guess. So it's probably in the at the time of internet era and boom, etc. So they met Nick because he left a voice note with this idea of creating an online shoe company with some stats which were quite interesting. So my key takeaway from that incident was that when they met Nick, Nick actually pitched the idea of Zappos in 3 lines. This is a very important thing, right? So I think it's about storytelling. So as a founder, you have to be very good at storytelling. Presenting your company, your idea to anyone, almost an investor or a customer, you have to make it really, really simple to understand. No matter how complex things you're building, you need to make sure that people understand this in like few sentences. And this specific example of the pitch that Tony did, it was just 3 lines. And even if it's 3 lines, it's very insightful. The pitch goes like this. Footwear industry is a $40 billion industry in the US alone. Yeah. And 5% of it is through mail order. And the catalog sales make up $2 billion of it. Yeah, just like the 5%. And the third sentence he said is it's likely that the e-commerce will continue to grow and people will keep buying shoes. It's very simple. Why it's very simple but it's very powerful is because it starts with a fact. So this is like a framework for the storytelling. You start with a very important fact that most people ignore, which is footwear. The fact is that footwear is a massive industry. It's a $40 billion industry. And the unique insight, the second part is the unique insight. 5% of that, which is $2 billion, is catalog sales or paper mail order sales. What is mail order sales? It is before internet, people used to do buy products also through mail, post. How do they do? The buyers would send purchase order, fill a order form, and then they would make the payment as well. And they will send it out to the seller through mail. The seller will receive the mail, and then he would process the order. Yeah. So without seeing each other, people were actually doing business. So if you think about it, this is mostly counterintuitive, right? So because if you want to go and buy your shoes, you really have to actually check the sizes and you have to see the shoes, right? So it's hard to believe that there will be a day when people will start buying shoes online, which is quite a common thing right now. But back in that time, it was hard to believe. But if you go deeper into the stats, people are already doing it, and that's the key insight, right? Even this is the time of just the e-commerce is just getting started. But regardless of the e-commerce, people are already, without seeing each other, they are buying shoes through mail orders. And the internet is just a different version of it. So just like he said in the third sentence, it's likely that e-commerce will grow. E-commerce will definitely grow, right? Because the internet was becoming more and more democratized and people were moving, and most of the services offline were actually moving into online. So it makes sense So I think the key learning there is the storytelling piece. You talk about a massive industry or a fact, you talk about a unique insight, and then you talk about your conviction. The third part. Footwear is a $40 billion industry, 5% is the catalog sales. People are actually doing this. So that means that that's the key insight. The third thing is the conviction that e-commerce will continuously grow. And shoes is something that people want, so they will most likely keep buying it, which means it's not a bubble. It's not an immediate business that will, it's a real need. It's a ongoing need. So I think that's like one key learning for me about the storytelling part. The next interesting thing was after they decided to invest, Tony, because they had Sequoia invested with their previous company called Link Exchange, they tried to convince Sequoia and several other investors to actually invest in Zappos, and they couldn't make it work because the numbers were not matching. People were not believing in this idea. That's the thing, right? I think the best way to build a startup is you should have strong level of conviction on a certain thing when 99% of people are saying no. Even if that makes sense, people might not believe that it might work at scale. So that's an interesting thing. So when they face this issue that okay, they have invested, now they are not able to convince any major other investors, it really became an obsession for them to make this thing work, because I think they invested in 10-20 companies and Zappos was the only company that was organically growing. So it totally made sense to put all their energy into this one company. And for Tony, he was also looking for the second gig after Link Exchange. So he started really like exploring a lot of different things to figure out his next venture. And eventually he started asking all these questions to him, like what are the things that motivates him. So when you start building a startup, I think the one major question that you need to ask yourself is this something exciting for me to continue for the next 5 years? Is it motivating enough for me to wake up every single day and work towards in the next 5 years, 5 to 10 years? We never know. So that question, I think, is important for any entrepreneur. I think you could see Tony asking to himself after the exit. He already had a lot of money, so money was no more a problem. The point is like, are you ready to take all that money and bet that into the new ventures in something that he believes? So the interesting fact here is like, people have different motivations. Not everybody would be really motivated to go after a specific mission, like for example climate change or supporting small businesses, or like there are different missions that people could have, right? But in his case it was very unique. And I thought this also means that motivations can be also very personal. So his motivation was really very simple. It was to disprove everyone else. So he couldn't convince many investors, including massive companies like investors like Sequoia, on this idea. And it really became an obsession that his real motivation was to prove everyone wrong. And I thought that's also fine, actually. You can always have a motivation that's very personal. So it doesn't have to be a massive mission or anything. It just have to be something, can also be very personal. So that was the second key learning. And then Tony decided to put all the investment, all his assets into Zappos later on when they struggled on the funding side. That was also interesting to see that because of the high level of conviction, he put all his savings from the first exit into the second company. He decided to come on board, joining as a CEO, and then take over the whole thing, just like all in mindset. And the interesting fact is the motivation is still to disprove others, right? Now, the last thing which was interesting about the success factor of there are several factors, but I think one of the major factors on the success factor of this e-commerce company called Zappos was they were previously running their warehouses through other people, which means like you have third-party services, right? Third-party providers that can actually help you with the shipping process. And for Zappos, they had so many different vendors doing it. The warehouses were not owned by them. It was owned by third party. And because they were growing significantly, I think their customer experience got really affected by relying on third party for shipping, and they had several shipping delays which resulted in like bad customer experience, customer churn, and that was hitting their overall growth. And so what they decided was they will build their own, they will start with experimenting with their own warehouse, which means they created one warehouse of their own and compared the shipping time with an existing third party, which was their already their logistics partner. And they ran experiments with this one warehouse, and basically turned out that their own warehouse was much better idea, because of, you know, you have better you could actually improve the customer experience significantly, especially the brand and customer experience, by delivering through your own warehouse. The shipping time will reduce, and also the customer experience is better, and they start getting repeat orders. So this was one of the key things, I think, key decisions they took. I thought it was very strategic and very interesting to see that companies that are not only relying on drop shipping can be successful, but also companies that actually fully focus on their own brand and fully focusing on creating their own brand experience could also, you know, be much more successful. Because the drop shipping model also, like after some point in time, it becomes really difficult, because if when other third parties are delivering on behalf of you, your brand experience gets, you know, it gets affected. So I think this is also one of the interesting learnings I had. Essentially what they are saying is like they had hybrid sales model. I think they had a hybrid inventory model. I think they had their own warehouses, and they also I think another important thing is like they convinced the banks to give them unlimited buying power, basically convincing banks to invest in buying these products so that they can scale to they can hold the inventory, because if you hold the inventory, you actually have control on the demand, and you can do the delivery prediction, etc., better, I think. So that was I think convincing banks to invest in giving them unlimited buying power, and then also creating their own warehouse were like two important factors I found interesting in their success story. So these were some of the core learnings. I really I mean this is really a video dedicated to Tony because he passed away, but you know, these are people who actually leave a legacy behind with a lot of learnings for others. I really appreciate what he did, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll continue with you know, more insights in my upcoming video. Have a nice day. See you later. Bye bye.